strong. But do it right when you've been done wrong. And you make good trouble. Make good trouble. You just make good trouble. Gotta be willing to pay the price. Gotta be ready to face the fight. Ooh, and make good trouble. Make good trouble. Make good trouble. Down to the sea to make good trouble. Make good trouble. He had to make good trouble. Make good trouble. When they locked Dr. King behind bars, he said, we're gonna show him just who we are and make good trouble. Make good trouble. We're gonna make good trouble. Make good trouble. Be strong when they attack. You hit them harder when you don't hit back. You just make good trouble. Make good trouble. Make good trouble. Gotta be willing to pay the price. Gotta be ready to face the fight. Ooh, and make good trouble. Make good trouble. Make good trouble. When something's wrong and you can't deny it, you got to resist and defy it. Make good trouble. 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 You got to make good trouble till there ain't no trouble no more. When your plans ain't working out and your mind is full of doubt, shout hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
When you're stuck with a worried mind and there's no peace you can find, shout hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Keep looking for the blessing in the lesson. Thankful for the faith you found. Shouting hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
And when you can't help but have the blues, watching the evening news, shout hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
And when you think it can't get no worse, shout out one more verse, hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
This old world is always full of trouble. You can't let it drag you down. Shout hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah anyhow.
Hallelujah.
And that's how we do it, everybody. That's how we get started with a couple of beautiful, beautiful tunes by our friend and our guest today, Mr. Gary Nicholson. It's 20 Question Tuesdays, and I'm here from what is now affectionately known as the Plank Tank. Thank you, Jill, for the name for my studio. I am very fond of it. And we are here on 20 Question Tuesdays. Once again, this week, my guest is going to be Mr. Gary Nicholson. And basically, for those who don't know, we're on Austin Music TV right now. This started as I just turned on the camera one day early on during the pandemic, and I started taking questions, started having a workshop. And it was really beautiful because a lot of people started showing up, and we all started having conversations, musicians, non-musicians, people who love music, people who just like hanging out, people who play, people who don't, shredders, songwriters, everybody. And well, as they say, it warmed my cold black heart a little bit, and I started doing it every week. And then Sheila Steele asked me to put it on cable television on Austin Music TV, which we are live on right now, which is channel 16 in Austin. And you have to go to channel 99 on ATTUverse. All the other ones, it's channel 16. And then I started having guests, and the show has just kind of taken off from there. It's really, really beautiful. A couple of quick things. Tonight, I'll be doing my From Here to There live stream, and it's a special one. It's called A New Hope. I'm just going to be doing songs of hope of my friends and of mine for 2021, because we all could use a little way to go into the new year with a little bit of hope. And may or may not be performing one of my friend Gary Nicholson songs. Not one that we co-wrote, but one of his I really love. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce my friend. And just everybody, we're going to have a lot of fun today. This is Gary Nicholson, everybody. Hi, Gary. How you doing in Nashville?
Good. All is well.
I'm glad you're here. We have a ton of really, really, really good questions, and I'm gonna have to keep writing them down because some are still coming in. I just saw one from Steve. Tons of great questions already for this show today, and they're from all over the place. And some of them, man, I can't wait to get into some of this stuff. But I want to start right off the bat with a really, really, really great question. For those who don't know, you've had songs cut by, I can go down the laundry list and show off and all this kind of stuff. But Willie Nelson, heck, you were over at my house when Willie sent you that video of that beautiful song that you wrote. And then, of course, Buddy Guy, Bonnie Raitt, Ringo Starr, you had the title track on the last. So this is a great question for somebody who does a lot of co-writing as well, and I really want to start with this because it's a super cool question. My friend Kate Howard says, when you're writing a song, and it's more about just writing a song for somebody, is there a mindset you strive for when writing a song for an iconic figure? And if so, how do you achieve it? I imagine it varies from one person to the next. But if you're particularly when you're writing a song and you think it's going to go to somebody, is there a kind of a mindset, or do you kind of feel what she's asking there?
Yeah, that's a really good question because it has been the kind of thing where if I'm collaborating with somebody and I know what they do and what they've done, it's like if it's somebody as iconic as Ringo Starr, then I'm trying to write a song that Ringo can sing, that's in his range. And also, God, he's recorded about 7 or 8 of our songs now, and they all have this kind of peace and love thing going on because Ringo's always just, every picture you see of Ringo's.
He's always making the peace symbol.
And then on his birthday, he has everybody meet at Capitol Studios, and everybody says peace and love at noon on his birthday every year. So one of our songs is called Peace Dream. The title of this last record was called Give More Love. And so that's an example of that is I'm trying not to be too Beatley, because if I'm too Beatley, then he snaps it off immediately. He says, well, that's a bit Beatley.
Really?
And then
so you got to kind of walk that line a little bit.
But same thing with once John Prine and I wrote half of one of John's records, that Lost Dogs and Mixed Blessings record. And of course, for me, I was just blown away by the opportunity to be able to co-write with John, because he didn't co-write very much. And I was just trying to write the best John Prine song I could come up with. It's just I wanted to have the goal as a collaborator with these people that have their careers already established and they're known artists. The goal is to help them come up with a song that sounds like they wrote it by themselves, you know.
Like it's their song.
Yeah, and it's got their vibe. I've been writing some more with Michael McDonald,
Yeah.
and so the one song that we've written that's in his set that he plays, you know, on all his gigs, and it's, you know, there's a bunch of versions of it on the internet. It's you know, it's just Michael McDonald doing his thing, you know, and it's
So you got to think that way.
I mean, I know the parts of me that are in it, but no one
Sure.
else would actually ever have to know that, you know.
I kind of want to hone in on something you said because I think it's so cool, and that is you want to write a song for this iconic figure or this person who's already established as if they wrote the song themselves. And
Yeah.
I think that's really, really hip. And I think a lot of us who have not had the experience of, you know, writing a song for Buddy Guy or writing a song for somebody like that, I think we kind of do that in our heads anyway, and we kind of practice it. And I think that a lot of us, you know, write songs and think, man, you know, like I just want this to feel like it came off a Faces record, you know, or it came off of something, and that's an okay thing to do. And yet you know you're turning them away from like, well, I'm going to write a Beatles song for Ringo. That's not such a good idea. He's going to go, no, I've done that, you know.
Right.
But I think it's such a cool thing. Can you expound a little bit on what you would do, like pick somebody else, you know, who are some of the other country cats, you know, that you've written for or recently, or blues that's you know, because I know you don't just work with some of the I mean you're kind of all over the map with who you songwrite with, man, and it's really cool, and that's also something I think it's inspiring for people. Pick somebody you know, bluesy or younger. What was the cat from Oh Brother that you did some great writing with? That young blues. Oh God, what's his name? He's so great.
I'm trying to think of what that was from Old Brother.
Yeah, well, it wasn't in. It was the guy with you did some writing with. Anyway, the young man who kind of played the Robert Johnson.
Yeah, Chris Thomas King.
Thank you, Chris Thomas King. You know,
that
but
was a weird co-write because his residence in New Orleans was completely wiped out in Katrina, and he brought his family to Nashville to do a show, and we were on the same bill, and he couldn't return home, and then when he could return home, he found everything was in the ruins and stuff. But yeah, we just wrote that one thing together. But the thing with all the Buddy Guy stuff is that, you know, I grew up listening to Buddy Guy when I was a kid, and the reason I've been able to have all these, there's probably 20 something songs that Buddy's recorded now that I've co-written with my friend Tom Hambridge, who produces Buddy's records.
Yeah.
So when I would come up with an idea for a blues song, well, I just called Tom, because I knew that if I wrote it with Tom, he's going to cut it on Buddy, you know. And I mean, I don't think Tom's recorded, probably he's produced 4 or 5 Buddy Guy records and won Grammys for a couple of them and stuff. I don't think he's recorded very few songs that he didn't write.
So I'm sorry to interrupt and break in on that. So like for that, it's more like you wrote a blues song and then you gave it to your buddy Tom. It wasn't necessarily that you wrote a song specifically thinking that one was going to be for Buddy.
Well, yeah,
like Blues in Black and White, or like Blues in Black and White.
I did actually. It was funny, Buddy. At one point, he said something that ought to be a song called something about Beauty is Skin Deep. Somebody ought to say Beauty is Skin Deep. And so I said, well, what if it was a song called Skin Deep that was about race, And so Tom and I wrote the song, but because Buddy had said that about Skin Deep, then we, included Buddy as
He gets a co-write.
a part of the writing,
Yeah.
and then that was the title of this record, and it was a way to have something that Buddy would say, and that's the great thing about writing with Tom is he's around Buddy, he's made all these records with him, he knows what Buddy would or wouldn't say and how he would naturally say it. Tom's just kind of become the perfect record producer for Buddy Guy for these last.
People don't always. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting again. It's part of the thing here, the online thing. So I apologize in advance. That there are people who are not necessarily like handlers, but a producer or a songwriter who really, really knows an artist, who says, I'm pretty sure he's going to go for this, or I'm sure he's going to get excited about this song. Can be someone that you can pitch 1,000 times to this person and that person, but once you've developed a relationship with somebody, that's it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, that's the way it is for Delbert and myself. I mean, we've Delbert influenced me so much when I first came back from California. I moved to California in the early '70s, and when I got back, the first record I heard was the Delbert and Glenn record, and
right.
And then I started playing Delbert's band, and years went on, and I wound up producing a bunch of records with him and co-writing just a big, huge bag of songs with him. And so I know what Delbert will and won't say, and subject matter that he would think, is something to have a song about. And
did you have a first time where somebody was Delbert necessarily, and this leads me to another question, but was Delbert one of the first people that you felt that way and they felt they could say that? Because I know there's one particular artist that they'll send something to me and say, hey, send this to Jeff. He knows what I'll sing. And then I'll get in on a co-write and stuff. But just that kind of, well, that was like a huge deal for me, and like, just to know that someone out there trusted me enough that they felt comfortable. And like, you have that with a number of folks, and you definitely have that relationship with Delbert. Was he kind of the first one that was like, he feels comfortable knowing that if I give him something, he's going to be cool with it, and I feel comfortable giving him something because I know he's going to be cool with it?
Yeah, well, we just, he's from Fort Worth, I'm from Dallas, and
grew into it.
I was just completely drawn to his music because it's bluesy R&B, but it's country at the same time. It's like this genreless area that Delbert, he's, some people call him the Godfather of Americana or whatever, as the title. But those are the waters that I love to swim in. I was never really into just writing straight up blues where you sing first line twice and the standard form of blues. I always just thought, can't do that. It just seemed like it's how are you ever going to get back to Willie Dixon and Robert Johnson? It's
Stories.
Yeah. So anyway, Delbert's just a really gifted songwriter, as well as being one of our favorite singers.
Another one of the questions here was, what was the first song you ever wrote with Delbert? Do you remember which one? Or was it one that got cut?
I think pretty early on, one of our first songs was a song called "Somebody to Love You." You got to find somebody to love you.
Yeah, yeah.
Later on, Winona covered that, and it was on that first record that I produced. That was a co-production with Emery Gordy for Delbert, and it was on that record. And that was in that first band. But then I was in the band, and we'd ride the bus, and we'd take, I think this song, Too Much Stuff, I think it took us like 8 months to write that song. And just, our Lone Star Blues has got 1 million verses, and we threw out as many verses.
Wait, 8 months?
Yeah, I mean, we're just fooling with it. And it ended up being the production. We had John Prine and Lyle Lovett as his partners in the version that we recorded. It turned out to be a really fun project, but we had the luxury of a lot of hang time on the bus for that.
Well, I've got a couple of questions that can take a little bit of a curveball for you that are fun. One is about the late great, actually two are kind of about the late great Billy Joe Shaver and your time working with him.
Well,
And and it's I know it's still soon, but a friend of mine and a close compatriot of yours, Gabriel Rhodes, was on here, and he said, tell about how Billy Joe rummaged through your notebook and corrected your lyrics.
Oh, yeah.
I'm dying to hear just a little bit about this, because that sounds very...
Well, this is probably, I guess, probably 83 or 84. When I first moved to Nashville, I played with Guy Clark on the road for 3 years, and then right on the heels of that, I went out with Bobby Bear for maybe 8 months or a year, and then Eddie Shaver and I just started jamming around a little bit, and Eddie decided, well, come and be in the band. So we would, it was really all about me backing up Eddie playing all the solos.
Sure.
But we worked out some twin parts and stuff, and
but still, there's a lot of guitar going on there with Eddie, so you kind of
that's kind of the reason. But I would room, we're always sharing rooms, in those days, and so I would stay in the room with Billy Joe because Eddie wanted to stay up all night and go crazy and have fun and be a kid, and I just wanted to go lay down somewhere,
Yeah, right.
But Billy, if we went to bed at 4 a.m, if the light hit the blinds at 6 a.m., he's up and going, and I'm just trying to cover myself up and get some sleep. Well, he finds some lyrics I was working on in my guitar case. And Billy, he gets, we're in a Hampton Inn or so, probably wasn't that good of a hotel. Wherever we were at,
Yeah.
He walked across the parking lot to the Dollar General and got a red pencil. Goes back and grades my lyrics in that guitar case.
Fix it. He grades it. He just grades it.
It's like circles words. It's just SP needs word, C minus. It writes all this. So I just wake up in a fog and I'm looking down in my guitar case, and there's these lyrics that Billy's scribbled on. And of course, I was already intimidated.
Well, sure.
As hell, just going down the road, thinking, man, this guy wrote Georgia on a fast train and all chunk of coal. And I mean, just being around Billy in those days. But we got to be really great pals, and I produced a couple of records for him. And I talked to him for an hour and a half the day before he passed.
Yeah.
And he was in the rehab after getting a new hip. And I'd had this crazy dream.
Yeah.
Where I'm sitting in Billy Joe's little house with him in Waco, which I spent a week with him there at one point. We wrote half of one of these records, and he says, "Yeah, I'm glad I finally got that new hip. It's really great." And so there's this piece of silver that's this long thing. It's over leaning up to the wall. He reaches over and grabs it, sticks it inside his pants leg, and zips up his pants leg, and says, "Yeah, this thing works great. I just slip it in there, and it's so great to have a new hip." And so that was my dream, is that he had this take in and out. It's like, what makes you dream something like that?
Well, I mean, Billy Joe makes you do that, right? Because is it that far-fetched?
Oh, it's crazy. But we did this TV show for, Norm Macdonald, the comic.
Yeah.
He's got a Netflix show, and so he did Billy Joe, and he had us come out to Hollywood. So I had 3 days in in Hollywood. They put us up at the W Hotel with Billy Joe. But that's another thing is like they're writing with Billy Joe. I wanted to write a song that would sound like he wrote it by himself because
Yeah.
all those iconic songs. And there's one that he just said, I'll love her as much as I can. And it's about his current wife at the time that he married and divorced 3 times. He actually married her a 4th time, but he had it annulled. And he said those words, you know, I'll love her as much as I can. And so that just immediately my antenna went up, and I started that song, and it just sounds like Billy Joe trying to be Jimmy Rogers kind of a song, you know.
You know, this is something that I notice about you when I'm hanging out with you. You have a keen radar. You know, we have lots and lots of friends and musicians and guitar players who will say, that sounds like a song. And, you know, I got to be honest, you know, I don't want to poo poo on anybody's ideas, but a lot of times it strikes me as, well, not really.
Yeah.
You know, and you try to be encouraging to people and say, oh yeah, cool. But when I'm with you, I notice that you do have a keen radar. I'll say something and you'll be like, oh man. And I'll just kind of notice that you have like a different kind of view on your face. And maybe you get out your phone and you write it in your notepad and you put it down for later. And I know that that's fodder that you might want to use it. Maybe it's going to be a line in a song. Maybe it's going to be the title of a song or something else. And is that something that I'm right about? That's something you're constantly doing and kind of keeping that radar open.
Absolutely. It's just like it's a part of, you know, it's like somebody was talking about songwriting in general and just what it's like to have a job of songwriting or whatever. I was really fortunate to be able to make a living my whole life writing songs, but it's really it's a way of life.
Yeah.
It doesn't really, I mean, just last night I laid down on the bed to go to sleep, and this idea came into my head, and I knew that if I didn't get up,
It's gone.
and put it in my phone and get as much of the idea out of my head as I could, that I was going to wake up the next day and say, what was I? Didn't I think I had a song idea or something last night? So I get up at 3:00 in the morning and go spend 20 or 30 minutes just kind of trying to get everything out of my head and onto my little notes thing on my phone, you know, and there's a song in there, you know, and it'll be a song. But it's like during this pandemic, you know, I've done a little bit of co-writing, but I've been writing mostly by myself, and it's interesting if I decide to not, I'm not trying to write a song. It's just that they occur in nature, you know, they're just something just from having done it, and maybe it's like muscle memory or something. You know, if you write songs all the time, then when you're not even trying to write a song,
You're kind of writing songs.
falls out of the wind anyway, and you can't help it. You know, so.
Yeah. You know, another thing that I want to mention to you is maybe the second or third time we sat down to write a song, I was really daunted. And this is just sort of like a nice little, you know, I hope it's not too kiss buddy, but it's a thank you. And we were sitting down working on a song, and I said, you know, sometimes it's just torture for me, you know, like it's really, really hard. And I think early on, I kind of had the expectation that you had to really, really suffer to get good songs out. And you kind of looked at me and you said something to the effect of, well, Jeff, I do this because I love it and because it's fun. You know, and I mean, it was a really, really big thing for me, Gary, to have the permission to take my craft seriously and want to write good songs, but not to feel like I had to hold myself up, to Guy Clark.
Yeah.
You want to, and it's great to do that, but it was a really, really, really great thing for me. And honestly, from that day forward, I've had so much more fun
Oh, that's
songwriting,
so good.
and I think that that's
It's
something that
great,
that
because
you bring to
it's like,
people.
I think it's part of our. I just, it's just the nature of the human ego that we will compare ourselves to others, And in my experience about being around, from Guy and Billy Joe to Brian and Delbert and whoever, some of these iconic collaborators I've had, it's just like, um, I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna get there. I'm not gonna be.
And so you feel that way too,
Yeah,
you know?
I'm not gonna get. I'm not. It's that was John Prine. That was Guy Clark or whoever it is, and it's like at some point you got to realize, okay, this is um, this is what I can get to, and this is,
Maybe
the
my contribution, my
the
my my
acceptance of
sentence.
it. Yeah, just
Man, you
being willing. Not to say that you don't want to aspire to
right.
the best thing you can possibly do, but I look at somebody like Randy Newman,
Yeah.
who's really a composer. I mean, it just his harmonic imagination is so far beyond what hillbilly guitar player is going to come up with.
Yeah, the most of us, right?
You know?
Well, this goes to another question, and it's another one from my friend Kate Howard, and but it's a really good question, and it kind of goes to this. And that's the other thing. I have a lot of people who come and watch this show that are budding songwriters, or sometimes they're scared to write their first song, and they get a lot of encouragement from people. And to hear that somebody like you, who's done all this writing and stuff, two things. One, that you'll encourage, cats like me is really, really nice, or write with a cat like me who's not going to necessarily get you the next hit on blah, blah, blah's record, but you still want to do it. But this question from Kate is really, really beautiful. Expound a bit on how you maintain the seeming duality of humility and confidence as a songwriter. And I think what you're talking about right now is a little bit of that.
Well, I think a part of that is just acceptance of who you are, instead of the tragic thing of comparing yourself to all these other people. It's just, you can't do anything about it. You're stuck with where you're going to be. It's just part of being realistic, I think.
Yeah.
Just um, but it's great to have all these amazing examples before us to aspire to. Um, but you got to get there in your own way, however it's going to be.
Boy, that's a big part of it, I'm sure too. But it seems like the humility part is not hard, and maybe the because we just have these people that no matter who we are, we have people that we look up to, and we may look up to John Prine, and he may have looked up to somebody else, and I look up to Stevie Wonder, and he looks up to somebody else, and somebody this kind of thing. But then that as the confidence part, you know, putting yourself out there is kind of tough, especially early on.
Yeah.
But once you've had, you know, how long did it take before you felt comfortable just kind of going, well, shit, I'm going to go ahead and try and write this song with, this person?
Oh, as far as collaborating, you mean,
Yeah.
with some of these badasses?
Yeah.
Um,
When did it start becoming a little bit more normal? Did you have to have a couple hits under your belt, or did it just kind of like more
well,
about
for
the
me,
company you
it's
kept?
like, I didn't really co-write much until I moved to Nashville, and I was 30 years old.
Mm.
And when I was 20 years old, I made a couple of records, and I lived in Los Angeles, and made a couple records that not anything came of the records. You know, the band was together for 2 albums, and then just kind of I found myself back in the bars around LA and went back. But I had a song that was in the Urban Cowboy movie, and that's what was my foot in the door to come to Nashville.
Mickey Gilley.
And because my publisher was Jim Ed Norman,
Uh-huh.
and he was producing records on Mickey
Right.
Gilley, Johnny Lee, Anne Murray. He had a stable of artists that he was producing. Then my job was to write songs. I knew if I wrote a good enough song for one of those artists that he was producing, I had a good shot at getting on those records. And so other established legendary songwriters were willing to collaborate with me, thinking, well, Jim Ed's got his publishing, so maybe if I write a song with this new kid from Texas, maybe, you know, so I got to collaborate with some of these guys that have been writing songs forever,
Yeah.
you know.
So it gave you some street cred.
And so from doing that and having a number of those songs recorded, you know, one thing would lead to another, and in the case of with Guy, it was just, you know, we'd been on the road traveling together, and if I had an idea that I thought that I was brave enough to take to Guy, then you know, we were able to start writing songs together. But I'd always have a stash of ideas when I approached somebody like Guy.
You feel like that's a good thing when you're doing the co-writing thing, no matter who it is? Do you feel like it's good to have like a bunch of stuff in your back pocket that might be ready for them?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing for me is that you know, I mean, and I think for a lot of guys who have been professional songwriters, you know, that have written a bunch of songs and everything, you can have your skill set all developed, and you can have, you know, we all know what the changes are and the different grooves and
How to rhyme.
feels and everything. But but you can, you know, you can have your pencil sharp and everything, but until you have an idea for a song and something, a place to start, well, then that's what somebody less experienced can bring to the situation. And so it's so disappointing for me to see somebody to write a song with me, and maybe they're a recording artist and their labels got them writing with every songwriter in town. And
Yeah.
for some reason, it's been determined that they need to be the writer of their songs, even though they're not developed songwriters at the time they're making the record. But if they co-write with guys that have been writing songs forever, so then they'll show up to the writing session and not have any ideas for a song. And because they're not very good songwriters, you say, okay, so you pull out a song idea that you've had for a while that you would have written by yourself or written with somebody else that's a pro songwriter, and you write that song with a fellow that's, you know, got a new black cowboy hat and some real tight jeans, and you know,
Yeah, and there ain't nothing wrong with that, but it's
and then the song,
disappointing.
you write the song with him, but you've only got 2 hours because he's got a meeting with his publicist and his merch guy.
Or he's got to go play golf.
Yeah, and so then the song doesn't turn out to be very good, but it was your idea, and now your idea is gone because he's
Yeah.
written with this fella, and it doesn't get recorded by him on his record that he's making because you only had 2 hours to write it with him, and you didn't have any help. And so it's I'm always hoping that if somebody's going to show up, they're going to have an idea for a song, but it doesn't have to be that way, you know.
No.
I'm just as happy to find an idea in the room just from talking to somebody or just seeing what comes up.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, look, your example of Skin Deep is really great because, if Buddy Guy wants to write a song that's about beauty is only skin deep, and you say, well, that just sparked an idea in your head. Well, this could be about race, and this could be a really beautiful idea for a song. To give him the nod of, well, here's a co-write because it was your idea, but it
yeah,
sparked.
well, he did say that. But the hilarious thing about Skin Deep is it's funny when Buddy sings it. I mean, the idea in my mind is, skin deep. We're all the same.
Yeah.
When Buddy sings it, he'll say, skin deep, underneath, we all look the same. Which is like, instead of saying, if you peel the skin off, then there's blood and
Bones.
veins
Yeah.
and bones. Instead, the intent of the song really is to say, we're, the skin color doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
within our soul nature, we're all the same, but anyway.
Well, I'll tell you, one change of something that you've written when somebody goes and cuts it can be a tough thing too. And I've seen people take it over the edge and, change their song 1,000 times. I'll leave my close friend nameless. I'm sorry, you're going to have to go recut that song. Well, no, I guess it's not going to make it on the album because I can't change it 8,000 times. But on the good side of this, there's a great question. That's why I love this show so much. Randy asks this question. I think you're going to like it. Have you ever been in a co-write situation that seemed hopeless, but it came out with a good song after all? You don't have to necessarily name the person or anything like that, but it's got to have happened, right? Like, I've definitely sat down thinking, I don't know, or I've had bad luck with somebody and I'm trying again or something like that. And then somehow it clicks.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Many, many, many times. I won't mention names either, but like a amazing developed mojo songwriter that's written very recognizable songs. We got together, it's that same thing. Here we are, a couple of guys who had a bunch of songs recorded, and we've, been there, done that, and, you would think that the two of us getting together to write a song, we'd just write a song, and we'd both have lots of ideas. Well, after going through all of our ideas, from 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 in the afternoon, and somebody got an idea and says, oh yeah, I wrote that 10 years ago. That was a B-side for an old Johnny Lee record. It's like,
yeah.
So we've exhausted the ideas that we have in our mind, and then we go and get some lunch, and we're leaving the lunch and driving home, and as we're driving back to the house, we come up with a song, and we go in his little writing room, and then 30 minutes later, we've got this song that we both love. We're walking away humming it, and we said we got to demo this fast because Randy Travis is cutting, and this is perfect, and it winds up to be a song that gets recorded and everything. It's just you never know.
Kind of staying open even past 4 hours of back and forth.
Yeah,
you finally go, you have lunch.
And chasing something down the road a little bit and saying, oh, I don't know, just kind of, because that, in addition to writing the song, you're going to have to make a demo. You're going to spend money. You're going to hire musicians and a stunt singer and make it sound like
stunt singer. Now, for those who don't know, a stunt singer meaning somebody who's going to cut the demo, who's got a great voice, who might be able to emote it, and then when they play it for somebody who's either an executive or somebody who's an artist, they go, "Oh wow, that's something I could get behind."
Yeah, there's some amazingly talented demo singers in Nashville, guys that you hear them singing, and you know the artist that's going to cut it is never going to get, you know.
They're
So,
never going to do necessarily what the
so
demo.
I've intentionally taken some of these singers that are so mighty. I've taken their vocal off and sang it myself because if somebody had to compare, they know they can beat me and singing a country song, and it's like I don't have one of those kind of voices, but for some songs that I don't have much of a I don't have a country-ish kind of twang thing, or what Waylon Jennings used to say. Well, he sings through his nose, but it's the wrong way.
Oh, that's funny.
He's singing through his nose the wrong way. But yeah, sometimes you feel like you need, in order for it to climb the A&R ladder at the label, and for people to hear it. And then some of these
You're
demo,
talking about maybe like an honesty thing to the vocal too. Like sometimes it needs to be a little less polished if you want to get it to the right person.
yeah.
Or
Well, the other thing is, I don't know how many times I've made full demos and spent the $800 or whatever it is, to have it all gussied up, well, the guy that was really about this was Emery Gordy,
Mhm.
one of the most talented record producers of all time. Anytime he ever recorded a song of mine, Patty Loveless or George Jones or somebody like that, he would hear the demo, and then he'd call me and say, "Hey man, you get me a guitar vocal of this?" And so he wanted me to just play the song, just a guitar vocal from me.
Like with an acoustic.
Yeah, and he didn't want to play a demo for the musicians when he cut the record, because they're just human, and if they hear a lick that's on the
They're going
demo,
to chase
they're going to go, "Oh, I'll show you. I can play that lick that guy played on the demo," and so all of a sudden, all taking advantage of all the imagination of all these talented players, they can't. They're just human, and they hear, and they start duplicating what the demo was, because everybody's trying to get, three
They
songs,
can't help it. They
three
can't
record
help it.
session, so Emery would always say he wanted to have a work tape or a demo that had, it was the singer who's going to sing the song, and it would be like Patty Loveless or something, and and the key that they're
Yeah.
going to sing it in, and the tempo that they're going to sing it in, and not much else.
Now he would hear the demo. See, this is totally fascinating to me, and I think to other people as well, probably because I talk a lot when I talk to different studio players who are on here about chasing the demo, and they're chasing the demo, and they're trying to get back to this feel when they finally get in the studio of what the demo had when they just sat down and played the dang song.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting that a producer would hear a demo of a band doing a song, think this is great, but definitely not want to give that, because you had to have that to get him into the song.
Yeah.
But he wants to give the acoustic, here's me just playing the song to everybody, so that they're not chasing the demo, and so that they bring something else to it, and so that if he wants to mold them a little bit one way or another, it just sounds like a really, really, really smart way to go for a producer.
I mean, I learned that. I learned that from Emery, because it's like in a case of that is this song of mine called "The Trouble with the Truth." It was
Yep, know that song well, yeah.
a title for one of Patty's records and stuff, and the way I envisioned the song was kind of like in an Al Greenish mode, that had the towel on the Tom Willie Mitchell
Yeah.
kind of thing that Al did, and and Emery completely transformed it and made it into something that could be palatable to country radio, and to Patty as an artist too, because it's you know yeah, he was really smart that way. It's one of those good tricks.
And Matt, well, I mean, and it's a pretty neat thing to know. These are kind of things that we could work at and work at and work at and work at, and if we're not there and it doesn't happen in the situation, it's not going to just like appear to us necessarily. And that's something that's really brilliant. I'm going to take a total left turn because I love this question. This is from Danielle. Danielle wants to know what you do in your free time. Now, I don't know if you're anything like me. My wife recently realized that there is no time when I'm not working. We've been married almost 9 years. Coming up on yeah. And she's like, yeah. There's no day when you don't work. There's no day when you're not like, thinking of a song or something's going on. And, I kind of took that as a compliment and also as a hope for our marriage that she gets what's going on and that she's patient enough to deal with me. But Danielle's question, what I love is, what do you do in your free time? And she puts Sudoku or paint. Like, do you have a lot of stuff that you do? And I'm an avid reader, and I really love doing what the Japanese call forest bath, like taking walks in the woods. It's
Yeah, that's fantastic.
they actually prescribe it, like a doctor will prescribe. You need to go take I think it's called Shinrin Roku, and
Wow.
yeah, it's pretty cool. There's like stuff on this that my wife told me about, and man, my life has been a little bit. The inner voice has calmed a little bit.
A forest bath.
A forest bath, Shinrin Roku, I think. Forgive me on the
Well,
pronunciation.
I enjoy getting in nature a lot. Um, if I'm gonna, if it's when it's so cold that you got to walk on the treadmill. It's like, but I love to do that, and it's funny because I started performing more over the last um, I don't know 10 years or so, and the invention of the whole Whitey Johnson thing, that it just kind of became my and
Your outlet.
the joke is yeah, that's Dad's expensive hobby, because
It's
and
going out. That's
I'm
why
trying
you
to think of it as a gig, but the reality is, you get on a plane and get a rent car and a hotel room, and then you got to pay the band, and you go through all the things just because you want to play music live. And the joke with Whitey Johnson is that he was so far ahead of his time because all his gigs were socially distanced long before the pandemic.
So some of you folks may not know, and there's some questions here from a couple of different people about. John Bowlinghall asks, "How was Whitey born?"
um, I wrote a short story for a book that was called A Guitar and a Pen, which was edited by um, Robert Hicks, who has written various books, Widow of the South being one, about the McGavics. It's a Civil War
Right.
drama. Anyway, Robert put together a book of songwriters writing short stories, and Christopherson had one, and I have to think of before I start leaving out people if I start naming everybody. But I was fortunate to have an opportunity, and when I was a kid, a teenager, I guess I would write some short stories, occasionally. And so anyway, I just wrote the short story called Whitey Johnson, and it's about a fictitious guitar of mine growing up in Garland, Texas. And the guy's, he's black, but he's albino, and his family calls him Whitey. And he encounters some real racist dudes at a fair he's playing, and he winds up dying in a fire started by the Klan at the black church where he hangs out and stuff. So it's this whole thing with Whitey Johnson, and then Colin Lennon and I started playing a lot of country blues together, and we would just read each other's minds playing that style. And so made a record eventually called Whitey Johnson. But the first performance was at a folk festival in Canada, Edmonton.
I love the Edmonton Folk
Yeah.
Festival. That's such a great one.
Well, that was my first time to put on the Whitey suit.
Yeah.
And Kebmo and Robert Cray were backstage with us there, and we took a picture that they call the Oreo picture because those guys are on both sides of me. And Colin gave them the crowd. You know, he said, "Man, Canadians will believe anything." So yes.
Oh, now I wouldn't say that around my wife. They just have a good sense of humor.
That's how it all started, you know. And
Yeah.
I found
Well,
a suit for it's $100 suit, but it's a 2-for-1 for $15 more. I could get a purple one for Colin, and we started doing that, and it went from there.
well, and it did take off, and it's cool to have a lot of people don't know that songwriters, tend to have alter egos in which they write because they write for so many people, and some even like, I don't know how much you know about this, but there's a lot of young cats who will, they'll write a song for Netflix. Somebody will call and they'll say, "Hey, I need a song that sounds like X," and they'll go to their home studio and they'll cut it and they'll make it, and then they'll just make up a name. And then they use that name because it doesn't really mess with their career. And then Netflix or whoever doesn't have to pay the rights to the actual artist. So it sucks for the actual artist, but it's great for the young songwriter, and you can't blame them for doing it.
Yeah.
But it's a fascinating thing because so many of us, we just wanted to have another band, or we just wanted to like put on a suit and go do something completely different from what people would expect of us. And I think it's really, really great to see a Gary show, and it's also really, really great to see a Whitey show, of which you do both in Austin when you come to visit.
Yeah, it's been, that was kind of the goal at one point, thinking if I'm going to travel to an area that I could go play a singer-songwriter show one night and then possibly play another. It doesn't always work.
No, well, I mean, it doesn't always work in what we
do. It does
do.
work, and I'm open for Whitey on occasions, and Whitey's open for me, and so it's.
Hey, we're gonna. Oh, go ahead.
No, whatever's next.
We are about to go off the air on Austin Music TV, so I'll thank. But we're going to stay online and just finish up these questions real quick. Today, my guest has been Mr. Gary Nicholson out of Nashville, originally from Dallas, and then all points in between, California, etc. Thanking Austin Music TV, thanking Sheila Steele. We'll probably go off in the middle of this because it's, but as we do, I'm going to ask the question. I only get like one real question that's my question that I love to ask people. And what I really, really love to ask people on this show is, what is your guilty pleasure, or the song that, or a type of music that people might not expect that you're into? I find that a lot of people don't want to say it's a guilty pleasure, and I'm totally cool with that. But I think you know what I mean. Like, for instance, John D. Graham told me he's really, 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 really into jazz. And Ray Wiley loves the guy who wrote Viva Las Vegas. And people don't know that when I grew up, I listened to a ton of Stevie Wonder when I was growing up, but my mother used to play Barry Manilow records. And so whether I like it or not, when I hear Can't Smile Without You, I get a warm, fuzzy feeling. And I know that's a guilty pleasure, Do you have like a guilty pleasure music that people wouldn't necessarily go, man, I can't remember it was the Spice Girls. I can't remember who it was. And I was like, wow, okay, cool.
Yeah, I don't really I mean, I can't really think of it as a guilty pleasure, but, one would if they saw a Whitey Johnson show or whatever, and it's mostly blues oriented stuff, they probably wouldn't assume that I would love bluegrass music as much as I do. And with the passing here, so many
Tony Rice.
greats, to see Tony move on, it's I'm just reminded that I tried to have a bluegrass band in the early '70s in Southern California, and I think the only reason we got the gig was just because we had original songs, and all the other bluegrass bands played covers.
Just covers.
But I'm crazy about just the amazing musicianship of flat pickers that it's. I just look at it and say, well, I'm obviously not going to be able to do that in this lifetime.
But you can dig it. Now there's just like there's so many different jazz, different things. There's so many different bluegrass. I mean, a lot of people that say bluegrass, they go, oh, it's Bill Monroe, that's it. And Bill Monroe didn't have flat picking, and Bill Monroe didn't have dobro, and he would go up on stage at the station inn and yell at Uncle Josh and say, I did not put that in the music. And that kind of thing. I've kind of felt like bluegrass is a very, very wide encompassing thing. If you go from like, the Osborne brothers to newgrass pickers that flat pick and stuff like that. Is it a little bit more on the story side or the harmony side or the just kind of like the whole thing? I mean, I can't tell you how much I got from singing on one mic with a bluegrass band.
Yeah.
Is so incredible for learning how to sing harmonies and how to blend.
Oh, yeah, it's my favorite modern bluegrass band is the Earls of Leicester, of course.
Right.
Because
Sean's in that, right? And
they're all virtuoso.
Yeah, but Jerry Douglas and yeah.
Yeah, Sean and Jerry Douglas and Barry, the bass player, and
Barry Bales.
And the amazing banjo player that I won't be able to call his name. Anyway, they're great. The other kind of music that I really love and that I keep coming back to is Indian music.
Indian classical.
Yeah, all the Ravi Shankar. I mean, it just let it could just be Ravi. It's just
that would be enough for you.
So deep and heavy. There's everything that you ever need to experience just in the music that Ravi made.
All right, well, we have about 15 seconds, so I'm just going to say for online, thanks for myself and for Gary Nicholson. We'll see you on my Austin Music TV next week, and we will continue on here in about 5 seconds online and finish up. Thanks, everybody at Austin Music TV. Thanks, Gary Nicholson.
Thanks for having me.
Perfect. Now we are just online. And since we are just online, we can answer just a couple more questions and do a couple of calls to action. I just want to say, absolutely go, now that I can do this, go to GaryNicholson.com. You're going to find out all sorts of really, really great stuff, who he's worked with, who you've worked with, what you're doing. It leads you to all sorts of other things. Go look up Gary's records as well. Great Divide was the most recent, and features Ruthie Foster and features so many beautiful songs. A lot of timely stuff, everybody. A lot of stuff that you'll really love. But you're always writing and you're always putting out music in one way or another. You're not really one to rest on your laurels.
Yeah.
Back to the Indian music, I got to go to India once to play with a rock and roll legend, as he liked to call himself. And bless his heart, he is a rock and roll legend. But and it was quite a deal. But when I was there, and I'm going to have to hip you to this. So the tambura, which is the drone that plays.
Right.
And so the drone plays while the sitar and the tabla kind of float all over the place. Well, there's just like a guy, or a gal who's like learning, whose job it is to just play the drone. And years will go by and they will just meditate, play the drone, listen, meditate, play the drone, listen. Well, I got there, and one of the very first nights, there was Northern Indian classical music at this place we were playing, and where they had taken us, and they had this little box, and it's basically a tambura and a speaker. I think I actually have it with me, but I'm gonna have to get you. I bought this in India, and I use it for writing and for meditation and all this stuff because I had to buy one. It just does this.
Yeah, I got the exact same thing.
And it's so great, man. And like you can set it and do different intervals.
Yeah,
You have one of those?
I've got the exact same thing. It looks a little different than that, but it does the exact same thing. It provides the drone sound, and you can choose the key for it. And
Yep. And it's so great for if you just want to get your guitar out and just blow a little bit,
Yeah.
And my wife would once somebody's heard you practice pedal steel, they don't ask you to practice very much in front of them. You know what I mean? They're not like looking for it. But when I would practice with this thing, Donnie would be like, "Ooh, are you going to practice with the drone today?" Because
Okay.
it'd just be beautiful and stuff. And it's such a meditative thing where you can get your head out too. And that's one of the greatest things I got from Indian classical music. But
Do you have a harmonium?
I don't. You know who does is one of the studios I work with a lot, the Zone Studio in Wimberley. We love putting. That's a nice secret weapon if you want like a little weighty sound. The harmonium, it's got the pump on the back, and then you just play the keys. It's got a few different stops.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh God, what a great instrument,
Yeah,
and so simple to play.
Sometimes you have to run them through the tuner.
Yeah, because it'll be a little bit out for sure. Okay, making sure we get to as many questions as we did. Yeah, we got this. There's one last question that I'll ask for my friend Steve. He said he wanted to know any advice for someone new at guitar playing. Now, a lot of people don't know, man, like because so much focus goes on your songwriting. You played guitar for Delbert for a really, really, really long time, and have done it. And when we're doing a gig, like when you would come sit in with the Apostles, or back when we did that, or when you come sit in with the Resentments, part of the show is also that, it's a little bit more than holding your own. You got definitely your own voice on guitar and stuff. But everybody's, any advice for someone new at guitar playing?
Well, I think a great thing to do for somebody is to show them just open E tuning. And immediately you've got the ability to play a lot of songs with one finger.
Yeah.
Or a couple of fingers. But yeah, if you can show somebody that, then there's a way to start making music pretty early on in some way,
And feel like you're playing a song.
Yeah, it's kind of pleasing, and because of all the open strings, it's musical and entertaining sounding, and it's kind of a good. I've done that for numerous friends, the way to get
So, yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, you going to demonstrate?
Well, I was just going to do this. I'll bump down to D. I should be tuning up to the pitch. But if I go down to D tuning and I've tuned, D, A, D, F sharp, A, D, or you do it in E, which would be E, B, E, G sharp, B, E. Well, then all of a sudden, whether you got a slide or not, your 1, your 4, and your 5 are just like that.
Yeah.
So you can play all the rock and roll songs, all the blues songs, and you're not really working that hard, but all of a sudden it sounds really, really musical, like right off the bat.
Yeah.
That's great advice for beginning guitar players. Show them open E tuning or one open tuning, and they can beat the soup out of it and have some fun. I find that with guitar students and stuff, or people getting into guitar, or somebody who says, I want to become a better guitar player, to self-accompany myself better, they feel daunted at first. And man, just giving them something fun to play, a 3-chord song that they can go on, or a 2-chord song, or a 1-chord. Learn Texas Cooking. Give them a 1-chord song and say, learn how to play this.
Yeah.
You don't need much.
That's a great thing.
Oh man, that's great advice. I love it. Well, I guess we'll leave it there.
Right.
What a great interview, man. Thanks so much for doing this. I love seeing you. Give my best to the family stuff. Stay on with me for just a second when I sign off online. Thanks everybody. I'll be online tonight for my from here to there. And once again, Gary Nicholson. Thanks everybody. All right. We'll see you next week, and I'll see you